Hello and welcome to Belocam. We have another military vehicle video to show you today. So this vehicle is what's called a Stalwart high mobility load carrier. So it's pretty much an off-road truck which was in use by the British Army in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and finally they stopped using them in the 90s. And these things were absolutely brilliant off-road. They were a very capable machine. They ended up stopping using them because they were getting quite high maintenance. They weren't all that good on the road and they needed quite a lot of maintenance to keep going. These are also amphibious, so the whole thing, you can drive it into water and it will float, it will become a boat, and I'll show you some more at the back of that in a minute. And yeah, this one is actually quite an early model. So this was 23EK62 was its army registration, and this is number 24. I'll show you inside on the data plate in a minute. So this was only number 24 off the production line. So it's quite an early one. This is a Mark 1. The Mark 2s had slightly different cutouts on the windows and a few other differences. But yeah, this is a Mark 1. This is an early one, and it's actually in quite good condition. It doesn't look all that great because there's a bit of damage to it, and there's some obvious things that need doing, but it's really not actually that bad. It's one of those things that the more you look at this vehicle, the better it gets, which is always a nice way round. And yeah, there are obviously supposed to be more wheels in the middle. They've actually been removed just so that it's easier to steer. Only the first two wheels steer, so they've been removed just to help it getting it in and out the shed. I've got them over in the corner of the shed, which I'll show you later. So the really cool thing about these vehicles is to get in and out of them, you actually have to go in and out via the roof hatches. So there's no conventional doors on it like any normal truck. You actually have to climb up here, right up on the very top, and then you access through either of these main hatches. Drop down in, and this is the driver's position in here. So you can see the steering wheel and the other controls that we have here. And yeah, unfortunately it has been vandalised. We've got some broken glass to fix, but the rest of the cab's pretty good. There's most of the little bits and pieces are still in here. Here's where your rifles go. The crew would have carried a couple of rifles. Still got the little racks there and various other little bits and pieces all still in here. So yeah, from the cab we will go into the rear of the vehicle, which this is where the project gets a little bit more complicated, because I've actually bought this with no engine in it at all. So this should normally have all the covers on, and then inside here, that's the gearbox, and then right here, this is where the engine should be sat. Now these two things here, just jump down, these are actually the thrusters for when you're in the water. So the drives come off the gearboxes, and there's little propellers in these tubes which suck water in from the sides and blow it out the back. Yeah, we're going to clean it right back, and we're going to paint it all up, and we're going to get it going, and it should be really good fun. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like off-road. And then phase 2 of the operation will be to get it swimming again. So we do intend to get this fully swimming, and that will be really, really good fun. So here's some of the bits and pieces I got with it. That's the engine which we're going to put in. This should actually have a Rolls-Royce petrol engine. That's what they originally had, but this is actually a diesel Bedford 500 engine, which is just it's just a lot more easier to run, and the later ones were modernized with diesels. These are all the other bits which came out of it, which I've got to clean up and get ready to put back in. There's the engine mounts and all the other bits and pieces there.
Over the next few weekends, the replacement engine was lowered in and connected up. This was actually a fairly straightforward process, although many of the cables and engine controls did need to be altered, as did the cooling pipes for the radiator, which was then put in, and the fan pack for the cooling installed. One other thing that we did change was the fuel tank. These machines are fitted with massive fuel tanks, around 100 gallons of fuel, which is about 450 litres. This one needed cleaning out anyway, so out that came for now, and we fitted a much smaller stainless tank so that we could just give the vehicle a test drive without that big fuel tank in the way of the drive shafts and drive gear.
Okay, so we now have the Stalwart back in the shed, and we've been working on the engine, which the replacement engine we have now all fitted. So this is the replacement engine that I got, which is now all hooked up to the gearbox, and it starts and runs really well, which is great.
However, there was a slight problem with the transmission, so when you dip the clutch, put it in gear, the whole thing wouldn't go anywhere, it was stuck solid. So what we've done now is what we'll show you quickly now. So what we did was we took apart the transfer box, which is this piece here. This is where the main drive comes through. This is where the drive then goes to the left and the right. And I've actually taken apart all this. There should be another drive shaft here. Here's one of the drive shafts to the front left-hand wheel. That's the coupler, which has been disconnected so that we could then test all of the bevel boxes. Now the bevel boxes are these things. You can see inside there there's gears going both to the rear and to the front, and then the middle wheel drives straight through, and it was this right-hand bevel box which basically was full of muddy water, and that is the problem. These two end pieces, which are both here, these are the boxes going to the rear and to the front. Both of these are C solid. So this is the problem. This is what we've got now on C's. And then we've got to put all this stuff back together. There's that's the big forward and reverser drive. That goes back in here. And then all of this goes back together. Hopefully the way it came.
With the gearbox now all back together, we were finally able to move it around under its own power for the first time in many years. The next thing to do was focus on the paintwork. This vehicle had had many coats of paint applied over the years, and this was removed using an air compressed needle gun, which although slow going did take all the layers of old paintwork off quite nicely. After several days of needle gunning and a quick cut brush with the mini grinder, on went the undercoat, followed by 3 coats of NATO green, and then finally some black stripes were added to give the woodland camouflage finish. With the vehicle now running and looking the part, it was now time to give it its first test drive.
Okay, so we're out the field now and we're going to give her a little spin, see what she drives like. Right, we're sat in, let's fire her up, see how she goes. There's still quite a bit to refine, so we've made it able that we're able to drive it and move it around, but there's still quite a bit to get much better than it is now. So put these on too because it's quite loud.
With the vehicle being a full continuous 6-wheel drive, even a wet grass field with the muddy areas, it is no problem to travel up and over. For such a big vehicle with all 4 front wheels steering, it really is quite effortless to steer, and is a very easy and fun vehicle you quickly get the hang of driving. One slight problem so far is the brakes, which although do slightly work, they are nowhere near as good as they should be, and so we'll need looking at as the next priority. Even going down some of the big downhill slopes felt very comfortable, and it will be really fun to try and get back up some of these steep slopes when everything else on the vehicle is fully operational.
Okay, so that is the Stalwart all put away back in the shed. And yeah, this is just part 1 of the Stalwart restoration story. This is just the first section where we've just got it going and painted her up. But what we're going to be doing now is we're actually going to be getting this swimming again. So these are supposed to be amphibious. This one does need quite a bit of work, but we're going to be doing that now. And we've got a really cool old flooded quarry up the top, which we're going to be testing it in. So don't forget to subscribe because we've got some more good videos coming up. And we will catch you again soon for more videos.